The billionaire's voice cut through the quiet diner like a blade. You, he said, tapping his finger against the menu. You look smart enough. Translate this for me. Every booth went silent. He wasn't loud. He didn't need to be. People like him carried power in their tone, not their volume. The waitress turned slowly. Her name tag read Lina, a soft name that didn't match the sharp intelligence in her eyes. She held a coffee pot in one hand, a tired smile on her lips, the kind worn by people who had learned to stay calm in the face of arrogance. What do you need translated, sir? She asked politely. The billionaire, Julian Hale, tech mogul, pocket square perfect, ego polished to a shine, slid a small notebook across the table. I'm meeting a foreign investor in an hour, he said. He sent me this message in some tribal dialect. No one at my company could figure it out. He leaned back like he was doing her a favor. So go on, he said. Translate it. Lina wiped her hands on her apron, opened the notebook, and took a single glance at the scribbled symbols. Her heart stilled. She knew this language. She knew it better than she knew English. But she didn't react. Not yet. Where did you get this? She asked quietly. Doesn't matter, Julian said. I was told you might know languages. The owner said you grew up overseas. Her jaw tightened ever so slightly. The owner talked too much. People assumed servers were simple, convenient, replaceable. But not her. Julian tapped his watch. Well, I'm waiting. She studied the symbols again, curved, precise strokes that curled like vines, an ancient rhythm hidden beneath the shapes. It wasn't tribal. It was brilliant. A rare written form used by a remote community of scholars in northern Asia. Barely 20 families left spoke it. Lina exhaled slowly. It's not a dialect, she said softly. Julian raised an eyebrow. Oh, and what is it then? A warning, she said. His amusement flickered. A warning. He snorted. Right. My investor is worth $2 billion. He wouldn't send me threats. Lina lifted her eyes, her calmness unnerving him. Sir, this script is only used for one purpose. And what's that? He asked, leaning in. To reject an alliance. Silence. He blinked. What? It says, Lina continued evenly. The river does not flow backward. We do not bend to foreign hands. Julian froze. She turned another page. Here, she said, pointing. It adds, honor your own house before asking entry into ours. His jaw tensed. You're telling me, he said slowly, that this message is a refusal? Yes, Lina replied, and not a polite one. Julian snatched the notebook back, flipping through it like she might be lying. But the more he stared, the more he realized. The symbols did look cold. Firm. Absolute. How do you know this? He asked, voice cracking with disbelief. Lina wiped a table nearby, casual as the wind. I studied it. At a community college, he scoffed. No, she said gently. At the International Institute of Linguistic Preservation. Julian froze again. That institute only accepted the top 0.01% of global linguists. People with IQs off the charts. People who could speak languages most scholars had only read about. People like her. You're joking, he whispered. She didn't even smile. I can read 37 languages, she said softly. I speak 22. He stared at her. A waitress. Cleaning tables. Pouring coffee. A genius. So why? He murmured slowly. Are you here? She shrugged. Because brilliance doesn't always pay the bills. And arrogance doesn't always come with intelligence. His face flushed. She continued. Your investor wasn't insulting you, she said. He was warning you. His culture values honor above profit. You offered him numbers. He wanted respect. Julian swallowed hard. How do I fix it? Lina looked at him for a long moment. Do you want the honest answer? She asked. Yes, he whispered. You don't fix it, she said quietly. You apologize. You show humility. You admit you approached him like a king seeking servants, not partners. His stomach twisted. You walk into that meeting, she continued, with your head lowered. And you tell him you're willing to learn. Julian stared at her like she was a door to a world he'd never seen before. And she wasn't done. One more thing, she added. You address him in his language. Not broken phrases from an app. Correctly. Precisely. His eyes widened. You can teach me? The room went still. Lina's expression remained calm, controlled. For someone who respects the language, she said, yes. And if I don't, he asked. Her eyes hardened just slightly. Then the river will keep flowing forward, she said. And you'll be standing behind it, wondering why no one let you cross. Julian swallowed. For the love of God, he whispered, teach me. Please. For the first time, Lina allowed a tiny smile. Then sit, she said, pulling out a chair. And listen carefully. The billionaire sat. The waitress began to teach. And for the first time in his life, Julian Hale realized something he had never considered. He wasn't the smartest person in the room. Not even close. Julian Hale had been mentored by Nobel laureates, hired by presidents, and praised by global investors. But nothing in his life had ever humbled him like sitting in a diner booth being scolded in a rare ancient language by a waitress. Lina sat across from him with the notebook between them, her posture relaxed but her eyes razor-sharp. Every time he mispronounced a syllable, she stopped him with a slight tilt of her head. And somehow that small gesture carried more authority than any boardroom executive he'd ever faced. Try again, she said calmly. Julian repeated the phrase, tongue awkward, the sounds foreign. She sighed. You're speaking like you're chewing marbles. Slow down. Across the diner, a few customers snickered. Julian felt his ears burn. No one ever corrected him like this. He forced the words out again, softer, slower. This time she didn't interrupt. When he finished, he looked up eagerly, waiting for approval like a schoolboy begging for a gold star. Lina nodded once. That's acceptable. It shouldn't have meant anything. But it did. He leaned back, letting out a breath he didn't know he was holding. You're terrifying, he muttered. No, she replied, still flipping pages in the notebook. I'm honest. People confuse the two. Julian's chest tightened. Honest. He wasn't used to honest people. He was used to flattering ones. People who told him what he wanted to hear. This was different. He watched her trace the rare symbols with her finger, the respect in her touch, almost reverent. How did you learn this language? He finally asked. Lina didn't answer at first. Her finger paused on one of the curved symbols. It's called Hirukshin, she said quietly. It's spoken by a community of scholars in a northern valley. They guard their knowledge very carefully. They almost never teach outsiders. Julian leaned forward. And they taught you? She closed the notebook gently. They taught my mentor, she said. And he taught me. Julian frowned. Your mentor must have been one of the greatest linguists of our time, she said, eyes softening. He took me in when I was 17. Said my mind worked differently. Called me a bridge between eras. There was emotion there. Buried deep. Protected. What happened to him? Julian asked softly. Lina's jaw tightened, and for a moment her eyes clouded with grief, so quiet it hurt to witness. He died, she said simply. 3 years ago. Julian sat up straighter. The answer shouldn't have shaken him as much as it did, but there was something fragile in the way she said it. I'm sorry, he whispered. She nodded once, then tucked the notebook under her arm. It's fine. But it wasn't fine. He could see it. She was holding herself together by threads. Is that why you left? He asked gently. Why you stopped being a linguist? Lina froze. Her breath hitched so subtly that most people would have missed it. Julian didn't. I didn't stop, she said quietly. I was forced to stop. His chest tightened. By who? A cold, humorless smile touched her lips. The same institutions that praised me, she said. The board, the investors, the university. They loved my work, until they didn't love me. Why not? She finally looked at him fully. Eyes sharp, wounded, angry. Because I proved something they didn't want proven. Julian blinked. What do you mean? She leaned in, lowering her voice. Languages aren't just words, she whispered. They carry power. Secrets. History people want erased. Julian's heartbeat stumbled. Are you saying? A translation I completed exposed corruption, she said matter-of-factly. Centuries of it. Entire political families built on lies. He stared at her. And instead of thanking you, they silenced me, she said quietly. They destroyed my funding, pulled my research, blacklisted me. I lost everything. Julian's stomach twisted. You worked for years, she continued, only to have your life ripped away because one translation meant more to them than my entire existence. And now you're waitressing. She nodded. A job that lets me breathe. That doesn't require me to bow. A job where my mind belongs to me again. Julian's throat tightened. He had misjudged her on a level he could barely comprehend. A woman who translated the secrets of civilizations. Reduced to taking orders from people who didn't know her brilliance. People like him. He swallowed. Lina, he said softly. I didn't know. You weren't supposed to, she replied. That's the point. He leaned forward, unable to hide the awe growing in his voice. You're the smartest person I've ever met. Lina didn't smile. She looked at him calmly and said, and you're the first billionaire who's ever said that without sounding threatened. Julian opened his mouth, but she wasn't done. You wanted me to translate a message, she said. But I think the real message you needed translated was your own arrogance. His breath stalled. She stood up. You have 1 hour, she said gently. Go fix your mistake with humility. He rose from his chair too quickly. Wait, Lina, would you? He hesitated. Ever consider working for me? Her eyes flashed. Not with anger. With something sharper. Work with you, she corrected. Not for you. Julian nodded instantly. Yes, with me. Lina picked up her coffee pot again. Maybe, she murmured. If you learn to listen. He exhaled. I'm trying, he whispered. She tilted her head. The smallest sign of approval. Good, she said softly. Then maybe the river will let you cross. And for the first time in his life, Julian Hale realized he wanted, not a partnership, not a deal, not a translation. He wanted her respect. Julian arrived at the penthouse conference suite 20 minutes early, a first in the history of his career. His assistants looked confused. His board members looked suspicious. But Julian wasn't paying attention to any of them. His mind was on a waitress with tired eyes and a mind sharper than any professor he'd ever met. Her voice echoed in his head. You approached him like a king seeking servants, not partners. Honor before profit. Listen, don't dominate. The rare language symbols she had drawn on his napkin were burned into his memory. Every curve, every stroke, every deliberate sound. And for the first time, Julian wasn't thinking about how to win. He was thinking about how to build trust. When the doors opened, the investor stepped in, a tall, stoic man with weathered skin and deep-set eyes. 2 advisors followed beside him. Julian stood, bowed his head slightly, and placed both hands respectfully over his chest, just as Lina had instructed. The advisors froze. The investor's eyebrow twitched upward, the smallest sign of surprise. Julian spoke the greeting carefully, reverently. Not perfect, but honest. The man's expression softened just a little. You speak Hirukshan? He asked, voice quiet but charged with interest. Julian chose honesty. No, he said, but I'm learning. The man gave the slightest nod of approval. The meeting went on. Gentle, deliberate, slow. Julian asked questions instead of boasting. He listened instead of dominating. He discussed honor, values, and legacy instead of numbers. For the first time in years, he wasn't performing. He wasn't a billionaire trying to impress. He was a student, trying to understand a world richer than his own. And the investor noticed. After an hour, he closed his notebook. You have changed, he said, studying Julian's face. When we last spoke, you were arrogant, hungry, eager to win, but not eager to learn. Julian swallowed. You were right, he said. And I am trying to correct that. The man leaned back. And who taught you so suddenly? Julian hesitated. A soft smile tugged at the investor's lips. It was not your advisors, he said. They lacked the humility you were showing. Julian took a quiet breath. It was a waitress, he said truthfully. A brilliant one. The investor's eyes warmed. Then she gave you something rare. A second chance. Julian lowered his head. I would like to earn it. The man nodded. The river flows forward, he said. And today, it carries you with it. The deal was not signed with eagerness. It was signed with respect. Julian walked out of the meeting with the signed agreement in his hand. But his mind wasn't on victory. It was on Lina. He drove straight back to the diner. When he walked in, she didn't greet him with a smile. She didn't turn soft or grateful like people usually did around him. She just looked up from wiping a table and said, You're early. That means it went well. He blinked. How did you know? You're standing taller, she said. And your face is different. He stepped closer. I didn't do it alone, he admitted. She didn't respond. Just waited. The investor said I've changed, he continued softly. And I think he was right. She nodded once, calm, measured. Good. Change is impossible if you're comfortable. Julian exhaled a shaky breath. You think I was uncomfortable? Yes, she said immediately. You were forced to face yourself for the first time. He looked down, and she whispered. That's usually what growth feels like. Julian watched her for a moment. The way she tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. The way she wiped the counter with gentle precision. The way she existed so quietly, yet moved mountains without trying. And he finally asked the question he'd been terrified to ask. Lina, why didn't you fight to stay in your field? With your brilliance, you could have changed the world. Her hands froze around the cloth. Her shoulders stiffened. Julian instantly regretted asking, but she drew a breath. A painful one. I did fight, she whispered. For years. Then why did you stop? He asked softly. She lifted her eyes. And for the first time since he'd met her, he saw the wound behind her strength. My research exposed something dangerous, she said quietly. Powerful people wanted it buried. They threatened my mentor. Her voice cracked. He tried to protect me. Julian held his breath. They made an example of him, she whispered. He died because of what we discovered. Julian felt the air leave his lungs. And when I tried to publish his final work, she said, tears thickening her voice. They came for me too. He stepped closer, slowly, carefully. You were scared, he said softly. I was hunted, she corrected. I lost my home, my funding, my community, everything. Her throat tightened. So I came here. She gestured around the small diner. A place where no one cares who I used to be. Where I can breathe without looking over my shoulder. Julian's chest throbbed with something fierce. You didn't deserve that, he whispered. Lina wiped her eyes quickly. Life doesn't care what people deserve. He swallowed. Lina, I can help you. No, she said immediately. I don't need saving. Just space. He nodded. Then I'll give you both. She blinked, surprised. He didn't reach for her hand. He didn't move closer. He simply said, if you ever decide to return to your field, I will stand behind you, not in front of you. Her lips parted. And if you don't, he added softly, I will still be here, listening, learning, not because I need your brilliance, but because I respect it. For the first time, Lina looked away, her breath trembling. Respect. Not pity. Not fascination. Not ownership. Respect. She turned back to him, voice barely a whisper. You're different now. He nodded. You made me different. Silence stretched. Soft, warm, delicate. Then she whispered. Thank you, Julian. It was the first time she said his name without distance. And it hit him harder than any success he had ever achieved. The dinner rush had ended hours ago, leaving the diner washed in a soft, honey-colored glow. The neon, open sign hummed quietly in the window. Outside, the city was fading into the comforting hush of night. Lina stood behind the counter rolling silverware, her movements slow, thoughtful. Julian sat in his usual booth, the corner seat where he could watch her without interrupting her space. He hadn't asked why he kept ending up there. He didn't need to. Some people didn't pull you in with force. They pulled you in with truth. Long day? She asked without looking up. Julian smiled gently. You could say that. She said, folding another napkin. You seem tired. I am, he admitted. But not the usual kind. She paused. Julian wasn't a man who confessed anything easily. Not to colleagues. Not to partners. Not even to himself. Her eyes met his, soft but probing. What kind of tired? He swallowed. The kind that comes after realizing you've been living wrong for a long time, he said quietly. Lina set the silverware down. Julian, she said softly, you're not a bad man. You were just surrounded by people who never told you the truth. He let out a shaky breath. And you did. A faint smile brushed her lips. Someone had to. He laughed gently under his breath. Silence settled. But it was the kind that wrapped two people together, not the kind that pushed them apart. You know, she began, voice softer. When you told me who you met with today, I was afraid. Julian's heart skipped. Afraid of what? That you'd go back to who you were, she said. That the moment you succeeded again, you'd forget everything you learned. He shook his head. I won't, he said. Not after meeting you. Lina's throat tightened. He continued, voice steady. You didn't just translate a message for me. You translated me. Who I was. Who I could be. He exhaled slowly. You held up a mirror I'd been avoiding my entire life. Her eyes softened with something dangerously close to emotion. Julian. And I want you to know, he said gently, that your brilliance doesn't intimidate me. It inspires me. Her breath caught. I've never wanted to impress someone this much, he admitted quietly. Lina looked away for a moment, steadying herself. Nobody ever says things like that to me, she whispered. They tell me I'm too intense, too focused, too much. You're not too much, he said. You're extraordinary. A single tear slipped down her cheek before she could stop it. She brushed it away quickly, embarrassed. Don't, Julian whispered. She met his eyes. and something inside her cracked open. Softly, she said, "You make it hard to keep my walls up." He smiled. Tired, warm, honest. "Then let them fall," he whispered. Lina looked at him for a long moment, studying the sincerity in his features, the humility he had never shown another person, the quiet yearning he didn't try to hide, the man he was becoming because someone had finally challenged him to be more. She walked toward his booth slowly. Each step carried years of pain, fear, and brilliance she'd been forced to bury. When she reached him, she didn't sit. She placed her hands on the table, leaning in slightly, close enough that he could feel the warmth of her breath. "Julian," she whispered, "I don't need saving." "I know," he murmured. "But maybe we can save each other." Her lips parted. He continued, softer. "You gave me a chance to grow. Let me give you a place to belong." Her breath trembled. "Belong," she echoed quietly. "Yes," he said, "in your brilliance, in your truth, in your life." He hesitated. "And if you'll let me, maybe beside you." Lina closed her eyes briefly, her entire body softening. Nobody had ever asked to stand beside her. They'd wanted to use her mind, control her talent, claim her discoveries. But Julian wanted to walk with her. When she opened her eyes again, they were shining. "Maybe," she whispered, "I don't have to hide anymore." Julian's expression softened into something delicate, almost reverent. "You never should have had to." The clock ticked quietly in the background. The diner lights hummed. Outside, a soft rain began to fall. And inside that tiny booth, two people who had lived in different worlds finally found the same one. Lina reached out and gently touched Julian's hand. Not a declaration, not a promise, just a beginning. A quiet, beautiful beginning. Julian turned his hand over and held hers carefully, as if he was holding something rare, something precious, something he'd never been given before. "Trust," Lina whispered. "You're learning." He smiled softly. "And I'll keep learning," he promised. She nodded. "Good," she whispered, squeezing his hand once. "Because I'm not done teaching you yet." And for the first time in both their lives, the future didn't look heavy. It looked hopeful. If this story touched your heart, share it. Because kindness doesn't always wear a smile, and heroes don't always wear uniforms. Sometimes, they walk in covered in dust, carrying stories that could change your heart forever.